Hey guys, this is the Infernoman, and we do budget, jank, fun, in Magic the Gathering Arena. Now, before we get into it, if you like the content that I put out there, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit me up with a like, or even better, subscribe to me. It really does show people that they care about what I do. If you have any questions, comments, stuff you'd like to see discussed, or if you want to talk to me directly, you can @ me on Twitter or chat directly with me as I do stream 2 to 3 times a week on Twitch. Sometimes it's Magic, sometimes it's other games. Either way, a visual link for those are going to be up on the screen right now, and I will have direct links in the details below. Now that we have that out of the way, let's go ahead, let's get into this deck tech. And today's deck tech, we're talking about Azorius Birbs. Yes, I know, I said Birbs. That is not a typo. All right? Our deck today is going to be using 10 rares and no mythics, which to me is about the limit of what I would consider a budget deck in Magic the Gathering Arena. Some may have difference in opinion, but maybe we can debate that in another day. The deck focus is to play as many evasive threats as possible, then use the card Rally of Wings to pull off some huge flying finishing moves in one fell swoop. Now, as always, here's how we're going to break this down. We'll cover the creatures in the deck first, then we'll cover the non-creature spells, the land base if applicable, the sideboard, we'll have a match with Sparky to give you an idea of what the deck is trying to do, and at the end, if you like the deck, a way to upgrade it. Alright, let's get started. In total, this deck's creature package is 28 total, and they are all flyers. So, let's begin with Pteramander. 1 mana, 1/1, Salamander Drake with flying. You may pay 8 and adapt 4. Adapt 4 is if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. This ability costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. We should be trying to win the game before we even have to activate that. Still, if you can get the requirements down, it doesn't hurt to have an extra body on the field that's really, really big. Fairy Miscreant. 1 mana, 1/1, Fairy Rogue with flying. When Fairy Miscreant enters the battlefield, if you control another creature named Fairy Miscreant, draw a card. The only reason it's here is the pseudo card draw if 1 or 2 stick on the battlefield, but it's otherwise merely here to fill a slot. Spectral Sailor. 1 mana, 1/1, Spirit Pirate with flash and flying. For 4 mana, draw a card. And no, it doesn't look like much, but this card can help us begin to draw cards if the game stalls out a bit, so it's actually pretty good to have. Nice that also the ability doesn't require us to tap it, so we don't lose momentum when we attack. Fairy Guidemother. 1 mana, 1/1, Fairy with flying. Its adventure ability is 2 mana at sorcery speed. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. The adventure side probably won't see much, but in some games, a pump is sometimes better than a body. Healer's Hawk. 1 mana, 1/1, Bird. Flying, lifelink. Healer's Hawk helps us keep alive with a wee bit of life gain, but it otherwise becomes a bigger nuisance if we can just grow it. Watcher of the Spheres. 2 mana, 2/2, Bird Wizard with flying. Creature spells with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever another creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, Watcher of the Spheres gets +1/+1 until end of turn. The first ability doesn't actually really help us that much, as you notice all of our flyers are mostly 1-drops, so they're already low costed, so it doesn't really do much. However, it's that second ability that we like. Even if the pump is only temporary, it can go tall whenever we need to do more damage. Skycat Sovereign. 2 mana, 1/1, Elemental Cat with flying. Skycat Sovereign gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with flying. And for 4 mana, create a 1/1 white cat bird creature token with flying. Aw, look at that little token. It's so cute. Sorry, I just like cute things. Anyways, just like the Watcher of the Spheres, it is capable of growing on its own to making it a big threat as opposed to going wide. However, because of the fact that both of these cards are doing the same thing, expect them both to be the target of removal pretty early on. And finally, Empyrean Eagle. 3 mana, 2/3, Bird Spirit with flying. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. It's our only Lord in the deck. There's not much else really to say except try to keep this alive by casting it last if you can in your turn. You'll notice that before I go on, most of our creatures, they may not seem like they're doing much of anything based on the fact that they're all very simple. However, the bigger thing to keep in mind when it comes to a deck like this is each one of these cards, if you noticed, have some kind of ability that gives them purpose. Some of the abilities are very, very situational. But depending on how your battlefield looks, you want to try to readjust based on those situations. There's going to be some times where maybe the Fairy Guidemother's pump is going to be better than casting the creature. Sometimes you might be able to pull off pumping up your Pteramander to be able to sponge a hit and take out a creature. Sometimes you might have to grind out a couple of extra creatures by making catbird tokens in order to stay alive a little bit longer. That's just some small advice I want to give you regarding this deck. It does look simple on paper, but in reality, there actually is a little bit more complexity to it. Now to go over the non-creature package. First off, unsummon. 1 mana, instant speed, return target creature to its owner's hand. You can use this on your own cards if you absolutely need to save something, but realistically, 99% of the time, you're going to use this to outtempo an opponent, whether they bring in a small or big creature that's going to be detrimental to your game plan. So make sure to bounce something out when you absolutely need to. We'll actually cover Staggering Insight. 2 mana, Aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. For the way this deck is designed, you mostly want to be an aggro-focused deck, but there's going to be some times where getting hit with multiple burn spells to your face means that you will be losing out really quickly. So this card will help us not only get cards back whenever we do that damage, since most of our creatures are going to be flying over our opponent's creatures, but also that lifelink will keep us alive long enough to stabilize and overrun our opponent. And now for the two main cards that actually make this deck work. First off, Rally of Wings. 2 mana, instant speed. Untap all creatures you control. Creatures you control with flying get +2/+2 until end of turn. This pumps up every one of our Birbs to do a massive swing. So keep your creatures alive utilizing the next card, Lofty Denial. 2 mana, instant speed. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. If you control a creature with flying, counter that spell unless its controller pays 4 instead. So the way this game plan works, based on the birds we just talked about right now, you want to ideally have the mana to utilize Rally of Wings, knowing that you'll get a lethal kill. And then you want to have just enough mana open to keep Lofty Denial waiting in the wings. Sorry. Keep both of these options open. So in the perfect world, you'll swing in with Rally of Wings, and if they got some way to respond, you'll Lofty Denial to counter that spell and be able to get a free win from that. Now on to your lands. A very simple set, 20 lands total. 6 plains, 6 islands, 4 tap lands in Tranquil Cove, and 4 rare lands in Hollowed Fountain. Those Hollowed Fountains are really essential to ensuring that this deck can go off. There's going to be times where you may allow it to come in tapped, but mostly when you're playing an aggro deck, you want to minimize as much as you can avoiding tap lands, because nothing hurts worse than playing a tap land on a turn where you really needed to either get something out on play or keep mana up to protect your creatures from getting destroyed. But otherwise, that's pretty much it for lands. Nothing fancy here. We're just trying to put down what we need and get swinging as soon as possible. All right, let's head on to the sideboard. Now, as far as your sideboard is concerned, we're running still a very low mana curve, so we have to keep that in mind based on what we are able to put in. So with that, 3 copies of Miscast for 1 mana, instant speed, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 3. Mainly, this is just to help out with your copies of Lofty Denial, and again, since we are running a very low curve, this is going to be our best counter spell for that. 2 more extra copies of Unsummon, 2 more extra copies of Staggering Insight, 4 copies of Devout Decree, a sorcery for 2 mana. Exile target creature that or planeswalker that's black or red, and scry 1. As you probably have seen out there, there is a lot of goblin decks still running around, lots of aggro decks, burn decks, and sacrifice decks. Mainly all of those are utilizing red and black to a degree. So this helps us out, just get rid of those things completely out of the game, and ensures that our game plan can still run. Kinjali Sunwing, 3 mana, 2/3 dinosaur with flying. Creatures your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped. You actually don't want to bring this in versus the low-costed creature decks out there. We're talking like the ones that go off very quickly, utilizing a lot of haste stuff, because this card is 3 mana. That means it's going to be a little on the slow side. Instead, this is more of a card that's geared towards the mid-range decks that are using a lot more bigger creatures that have bigger value than us, and slows them down enough for us to get in our swings. And because they're coming in tapped, this allows us to ensure that we can swing in without them trying to prevent anything with chump blocking. And finally, Make a Stand, 3 mana, instant speed. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. In some instances, this might be better to bring in versus, say, a counter spell, but this really depends on what style of deck you are fighting against. Only 2 copies is what you need. It's not so much for the pump, but it's mostly for the focus of just keeping your creatures alive. But otherwise, that's all I have for you guys regarding the sideboard. Are you ready for that time again? Oh yeah, it's time to fight Sparky. And here we go, Azorius Birbs. We are facing off against Sparky to show you how awesome this deck is. Showing you how high-flying it really is. Haha! You knew I was going to get in a bad pun. Alright, so let's look at our opening hand. Well, this would be great if we actually had a blue source, but we do not. We're going to have to mulligan. Let's see. Alright, a tap land is not good, but that's still better than what we had before. We can actually do stuff. Alright, so we're going to have to keep this. We'll drop off 1 Rally of Wings. Okay, actually the Hollow Fountain is actually good here. Let us go ahead and put down the island. We'll pass. Remember, again, Spectral Sailor has flash, so we can flash it in at the end of our opponent's turn. And we'll do that now. Bam! Aha! Threat achieved. Okay, Plains is good here too. So we can get the Skycat Sovereign in now, which comes in as a 2/2. Let's go ahead and fly over our opponent's creatures. We're not going to worry too much about them right now. That Baloth will be a problem later, but you can see we got the Inferior Eagle. What's nice about this hand that we currently have is we do have the Rally of Wings to finish off when we need to, and we do have a Lofty Denial to protect ourselves if we were going to have, well, if we had a normal opponent, Lofty Denial would have even more value. But even so, even against Sparky, it's kind of good that we have it. Eagle comes down, everything gets a nice little pump to it. Now we're doing good damage. Okay, Sparky, what big creature do you have this time? Okay, they want to draw some cards. That's fine. And we will, of course, will not block. We'll take that damage down to 14. This might be the turn we're going to have to actually protect ourselves for a bit. So now that we have 4 mana, we can actually start drawing cards with Spectral Sailor if we need to. What's nice is we don't have to tap it either, so this means we can just go free swinging. We're going to have to sponge 1 hit, which is not ideal. But I'm just basically trying to show you what the deck is trying to do. I guess in theory we could have... Wait, could we actually won last turn? 1, 2, 3, 4... Actually, we could have won last turn, I realized. That's okay. This is for demonstration purposes anyway. Okay, Baloth, Pack Hunter. We're actually going to counter that. Again, demonstration purposes allows us to... Ooh, they did pay for it. Okay. That's fine. But here's actually another fun example we can show you. So in this instance, if you had to be on the defensive, you can also use Rally of Wings here to actually sponge the hit. Sponging the hit here means that we won't take any damage, and then we could just finish off our opponent next turn. Let's go ahead, actually, let's do that as an example. And we will block. Okay. And there you go. That's basically how the deck works. I know. Nothing super fancy. You're just trying to keep at least a couple of ways to protect yourself and do your finishing move. Use it on the defensive if you need to, the Rally Wings. But in this instance, we were able to successfully pull off what we wanted to. There you go. No muss, no fuss. If you like a deck that just gets the job done without any super crazy setup, there you go. That's Azorius Birbs for you. All right, time for the upgrades. Now, as far as upgrades to the deck, as I always tell you guys, please make sure to upgrade the mana base. The good news is, though, the Hola fountains that we made for the beginning of the deck already means you're halfway there. Just get your Glacial Fortress, and you're done. Real easy. Next, Authority of the Consuls. 1 mana enchantment. Creatures your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 1 life. This is just to hose the aggro decks, the goblin decks out there, and give you plenty of time to not only keep yourself stable, but also build up your board. Remorseful Cleric. 2 mana, 2/1 Spirit Cleric with flying. Sacrifice the Cleric to exile all cards from target player's graveyard. Really easy to use, just helps you get rid of graveyards. And of course, if you do need the body, 2/1, pretty good. Unbreakable Formation. 3 mana, instant speed. Creatures you control get indestructible until end of turn. With addendum. If you cast the spell during your main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain Vigilance until end of turn. Get rid of the Make a Stand and put in Unbreakable Formation when you're able to. This card is going to be really good because although it is about the same as the other one, the advantage you have is being able to permanently pump your creatures on your main phase is going to be much better. However, keep in mind both cards are pretty situational, but the flexibility on this card is going to be a lot better. Sea Dasher Octopus, 3 mana, Octopus 2/2 with flash and mutate for 2. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. You're mostly going to be using this as a mutation, not so much for an actual body. That's not to say, however, that a body might be more beneficial. It's really going to be circumstantial depending on what's going on the board. Brazen Borrower, 3 mana, 3/1 Fairy Rogue with flash, flying. Brazen Borrower may only block creatures with flying, and its adventure ability, Petty Theft for 2, at instant speed. Return target non-land permanent and opponent controls to its owner's hand. If you prefer, instead of Sea Dasher Octopus, you can also go with Brazen Borrower. This is, of course, going to cost you mythics instead of rares. This is going to be more of a personal preference if you ask me. On the one hand, the Sea Dasher Octopus will get you more card draw. However, if you're more of a tempo player, then Brazen Borrower will probably be better for you. This is going to be up to you personally because they both cost the same mana. Real quick, we're going to jump to Safara's Skyblade first. For 7 mana, a 7/7 legendary angel with flying and lifelink. You may pay 1 white and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Other creatures you control with flying have indestructible. If you are dealing with an opponent that has a lot of wraths, then Safara is going to be a much better option for you. It's a huge body, and that lifelink will give you a big momentum swing if you can manage to keep it alive. And now for my spice, Shark Typhoon, 6 mana enchantment. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying, where X is the spell's converted mana cost. You may cycle it for 2 and X. Whenever you cycle Shark Typhoon, create an XX blue shark creature token with flying. The reason why I'm saying this is spicy is for this deck and its low curve, you are not basically casting this at all for 6 mana. You are merely using this for the cycle ability. With the way this deck works, you've kind of noticed we don't really have that much in terms of card draw. You are hoping you draw just enough to go off without having to do much else. So Shark Typhoon here is going to be utilized to get you a body when you need to either block, keep momentum going, or both. And what's nice is being able to cycle means that you don't have to worry about dealing with counter spells. Being able to replace itself just gives it a sweet bonus on top of that. Overall, I mean, what can I say? Shark Typhoon is just a good card. But that's all I got for you guys in terms of upgrades. The good news is, as I mentioned, there's not much you really need to upgrade in the deck. So even if you don't put in any of these things, the base deck already is actually pretty decent. At bare minimum, just the mana base alone, and you should be good to go. And that is Azorius Birbs in a nutshell. So, tell me, what do you think? Are you a fan of evasive aggro strategies? Are you newer to Magic Arena and you need something to get in those fast flying wins? Give the deck a try. Now, did I miss anything that you would consider suggesting? Either way, let me know in the comments below, and I would love to hear from all of you. Aside from that, thanks again for watching, guys. Now be sure to like and subscribe if I helped you out, or at least entertained you. And until next time, no matter what game you play, when in doubt, jank 'em out. Later.